They seated me behind a pillar at the wedding until my speech changed everything. The invitations had been heavy cream cardstock, embossed with gold leaf lettering that I knew, from my days managing household budgets down to the penny, cost at least $12.50 per unit. I hadn't received one in the mail, of course. I had seen one lying on my son's kitchen counter 3 weeks ago, a silent testament to the celebration I was meant to be excluded from. But I am here now. I had arrived at the St. Regis Grand Ballroom wearing the lavender chiffon dress I had saved for 4 months to purchase. It cost exactly $285 at a boutique downtown, a significant sum for a woman on a fixed pension. But I wanted to look like the mother Michael deserved. I wanted to match the elegance of the world he was marrying into. But as I stood at the entrance, clutching my small beaded handbag, the air in the room felt thin, as if the oxygen had been sucked out by the sheer opulence of the floral arrangements. White hydrangeas and imported orchids cascaded from the ceiling, their scent cloying and heavy, masking the underlying tension that vibrated through the floorboards. The usher, a young man with a headset and a clipboard, scanned the list. When his finger stopped at my name, his professional smile faltered. It didn't break, it just froze, turning brittle. "Ah, yes, Mrs. Vance," he said, his voice dropping an octave, as if sharing a shameful secret. "Right this way." He didn't lead me to the front row, where the mother of the groom traditionally sits, beaming with pride and dabbing away happy tears. He walked me past the velvet ropes, past the rows of crystal Chiavari chairs filled with strangers in designer suits. He walked me to the far left corner of the room, to a solitary chair positioned directly behind a massive, structural marble pillar. "Here we are," he mumbled, refusing to meet my eyes before retreating quickly. As if afraid I might make a scene, I sat down. The cold hardness of the chair seeped through the thin fabric of my dress. From this vantage point, the altar was completely obscured. I could see the left elbow of a groomsman. I could see the exit sign, but I could not see my son. A ripple of whispers moved through the rows nearby. The acoustics in the hall were designed to carry sound, and I heard them clearly. "Isn't that his mother? Why is she sitting there? Maybe they aren't close. It looks like a timeout corner." The humiliation didn't wash over me like a wave. It settled onto me like a heavy, wet wool blanket. It was suffocating. My hands, resting in my lap, began to tremble. I clasped them together, forcing the knuckles white to stop the shaking. The music swelled, Pachelbel's Canon in D. It was the song Michael and I had discussed years ago, back when he was a boy dreaming of his future. "You'll walk me down the aisle, Mom," he had said. Now the music signaled a ceremony I was physically present for but entirely erased from. As the vows began, I strained to hear. The pillar blocked the sound waves just as effectively as it blocked the view. I heard muffled promises. I heard the murmur of, "I do." But I saw nothing. I was a ghost in my own son's life, haunting the periphery of his joy. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and stinging. I quickly wiped it away. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Not here. Not yet. In that moment of quiet, crushing devastation, as I stared at the gray veining of the marble that hid my child from me, a steel rod formed in my spine. I promised myself I would not leave this wedding unseen. To understand the depth of this betrayal, you have to understand the mathematics of my motherhood. Michael was not just a son, he was a statistical improbability. I was 39 years old when he was born, after 7 years of infertility treatments that drained my savings account to exactly 42.18. I had suffered 3 miscarriages before him. When the doctor placed him in my arms, 7 pounds, 4 ounces of screaming. Pink life. I looked at him and knew that I was holding my entire world. His father left before Michael turned 2. He couldn't handle the crying, the bills, the responsibility. He walked out on a Tuesday and never came back. I raised Michael alone. And when I say alone, I mean I built our life brick by brick with my own exhausted hands. I worked 2 jobs for 18 years. My day started at 30:30 a.m. I baked bread at a local bakery, kneading dough until my wrist swelled, earning a $9.50 an hour. By 2:00 p.m., I was cleaning houses in the wealthy district, houses just like the one Claire grew up in, scrubbing toilets and polishing silver until 8:00 p.m. I did the math once. Over 18 years, I worked approximately 65,000 hours, and every single dollar went to him. I paid for the private tutoring when he struggled with math and 45 a week. I paid for the travel soccer team so he wouldn't feel left out first 200 a season. I paid for his college tuition, refusing to let him take out loans, emptying my small retirement fund to write a check for $32,000. But it wasn't just the money, it was the presence. Despite the exhaustion that lived in my bones like a chronic disease, I never missed a game. I sat in the bleachers in the rain, cheering the loudest. I stayed up until midnight helping him build dioramas for history class. I remember one night when he was 14, he had his heart broken by a girl at school. He sat at our small kitchen table, crying into his hands. I held him, stroking his hair. "Mom," he sobbed, "you're my hero. You do everything for me. One day, I'm gonna make it big. I'll give you the world. You'll never have to work again." We used to talk about his wedding. It was a favorite topic during long car rides. "We'll have a big band," he'd say, "and I want to dance with you first. To stand by me. Because you always stood by me." Those memories now felt like they belonged to a different life, a different timeline. As I sat behind the pillar, staring at the back of a stranger's head, I tried to reconcile that sweet boy with the man standing at the altar who had allowed his mother to be hidden away like a shameful secret. The shift didn't happen overnight. It was a slow erosion like water wearing down stone. It started the day he brought Claire home. Claire was beautiful in a polished, expensive way. Her hair was the color of spun gold, and her skin looked like it had never known a day of hard labor. She walked into my small, cozy living room, the one I kept spotless, with the afghans I had knitted draped over the sofa, and she smiled. But it wasn't a warm smile. It was the polite, tight-lipped smile one gives to a servant. Her eyes didn't meet mine. They scanned the room. They lingered on the scuff mark on the baseboard, the slightly worn fabric of the armchair, the ceramic figurines I had collected over the years. She was appraising the value of my life, and I could see the calculation in her eyes worthless. "It's quaint," she said, the word dripping with condescension. Later, while I was in the kitchen preparing tea, Earl Grey in the good china I saved for company, I heard them whispering in the living room. "Does your mom always dress simply?" Claire asked. Her voice wasn't hushed enough. "That sweater looks like it's from a thrift store." It wasn't. It was from a department store sale, bought 5 years ago. "She's just frugal," Michael said. He sounded defensive, but not of me. He sounded embarrassed. "She's had a hard life, Claire." "Well, we can help her update her look," Claire replied, "before she meets my parents." Appearances matter, Michael. Meeting her parents was a lesson in invisibility. They invited us to a restaurant where the appetizers cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Her father wore a suit that whispered money. Her mother wore diamonds that shouted it. They spoke in clipped sentences about summer homes, stock portfolios, and people I didn't know. They didn't ask me a single question. When I tried to contribute, mentioning a book I had read, Claire's mother looked at me, smiled vaguely, and turned back to Michael. "So, Michael, tell us more about your promotion." I was part of the scenery, a prop, and gradually, tragically, Michael began to echo them. He stopped coming over for Sunday dinners, claiming he was too busy with networking. He started criticizing my clothes. "Mom, maybe don't wear those shoes. They look old." He criticized my neighborhood. "It's getting kind of run down around here, isn't it?" He was looking at me through Claire's lens, and he didn't like what he saw. He saw the struggle. He saw the poverty he had escaped. And instead of honoring the ladder I had built for him with my own body, he wanted to burn it down so no one would know where he came from. The exclusion began with the small things, the social equivalent of paper cuts. First, it was the family events. I would see photos on Facebook, Claire, Michael, and her parents at a vineyard, at a charity gala, at a holiday brunch. The captions always read perfect family moments or the whole crew. I was never in the crew. When I confronted Michael about a Thanksgiving dinner I saw posted online, a dinner I had spent alone with a frozen meal, he stammered. "Oh, that was just a last-minute thing with her parents' business partners. It wasn't really family. You wouldn't have had fun, Mom. They talk about golf and finance all night." "I can talk about other things." "Michael," I had said gently, I know. It's just, we didn't want you to feel uncomfortable." Then came the engagement. When I asked about the wedding planning, trying to be involved, trying to offer my help, Claire would shut down. "Oh, we haven't finalized anything yet," she would say, inspecting her manicure. "It's all very up in the air." Then she would turn to Michael and start discussing floral arrangements in detail right in front of me. I overheard Michael talking to her once, when they thought I was out of earshot in the garden. "We have to invite her to the tasting, don't we?" he asked. "Michael, honestly," Claire sighed. "She won't appreciate the difference between the truffle risotto and the mushroom tart. She's used to simple things. She won't mind skipping it. It saves us a seat for the planner. She won't mind." Those 3 words broke something inside me. They assumed my lack of money meant a lack of taste, a lack of feeling, a lack of desire to be part of my son's joy. I began to feel less like a mother and more like an inconvenience. a stain on their perfect white tablecloth that they were desperately trying to scrub out. I didn't hear about the wedding date from my son. I heard it from Mrs. Gable, a neighbor 3 doors down. "I saw the announcement online," she chirped while I was watering my hydrangeas. "October 14th, the St. Regis? How fancy, Grace. You must be so excited," although my stomach dropped to my knees. "Yes," I lied, very excited. October 14th. That was 6 weeks away. I went inside and opened social media. There it was, a digital save, the date that had been sent to hundreds of people, just not me. The feed was full of it. Photos of the bridal shower, a garden party with champagne towers. Photos of the rehearsal dinner, a black tie affair on a rooftop. Photos of the dress fitting, Claire and her mother drinking mimosas, crying tears of joy. My son hadn't told me. When I finally called him, my voice trembling, he sounded exhausted. "Why didn't you tell me, Michael?" "Mom, it's complicated." He sighed. "The universal excuse of the coward. Claire's family is handling everything. Her dad is paying for it, so they get to make the calls. I didn't want to stress you out with the details." "Stress me out?" "By inviting me to your wedding." "You're invited, Mom!" "Of course, you're invited. It's just, the planning is intense. Claire is very particular. A few days later, I saw Claire at a coffee shop. She couldn't avoid me. It's a curated guest list," she said, using a buzzword she probably learned from a magazine. "We have to be very selective with the seating chart. My father has business associates." Curated. It felt like a slap. It meant filtered. It meant purged. The emotional distance between Michael and me was no longer a gap. It was a canyon. And I was standing on one side, screaming into the wind, while he stood on the other, putting on a tuxedo and pretending he couldn't hear me. 2 weeks before the wedding, I reached my breaking point. I drove to their apartment. I needed to look him in the eye. They were eating dinner. "Take out sushi that cost $80. "Mom," Michael said, putting down his chopsticks. He looked guilty. "Good. I need to know what is happening," I said, standing in their entryway. "I don't know the schedule. I don't know what to wear. I don't know my role. Am I walking you down the aisle?" Michael hesitated. He looked at Claire. Claire looked at her sushi. "Mom," Michael started, then stopped. He took a breath. "Claire thinks." "We think? It's better if you keep a low profile that day." "A low profile?" I asked. "I'm the mother of the groom? We know?" Claire chimed in, smiling that terrifyingly sweet smile. "But honestly, Grace, my family is very traditional. High society. We just think it might be overwhelming for you to be in the spotlight. We don't want you to feel out of place." "So," Michael continued, rushing the words out, "we aren't doing the mother-son dance. And we think it's best if you aren't in the receiving line." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You're hiding me?" "No," Claire said. "We just want you to be comfortable." "Actually, we were thinking, since you're so good with practical things, maybe you could help manage the gift table, or help the caterers keep the bridal suite tidy. You know, give you a purpose so you aren't just standing around awkwardly." The silence that followed was deafening. They weren't just excluding me. They were demoting me. They were offering me a role, yes, the role of a servant, a maid. My soul shook like glass, ready to shatter. I looked at my son, my miracle boy. The boy who promised to give me the world. He was sitting there, letting this woman reduce his mother to hired help. "I see," I whispered. "I will consider it." I walked out before I broke down. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. The final blow came 3 days later. I was sitting in my living room, knitting, a nervous habit I couldn't break, when my phone pinged. It was a message from Sarah, a former coworker from the cleaning service. She was still working in the industry and had ended up serving at Claire's bridal brunch. "Grace," the message read, "I shouldn't send this. I could get fired. But I saw your son's fiancée showing these to her bridesmaids. They were laughing. I thought you deserved to know." Attached were 3 screenshots from a group chat titled, "Wedding Logistics." My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. "Claire," so I talked to Michael. He agreed. "We're seating her behind the south pillar." "Bridesmaid Onsinam, really? Won't she be mad?" "Claire, she won't complain. She's meek. Besides, have you seen her clothes? Her outfit will ruin the photos. We need the aisle to look pristine." "Claire's mother, good decision, darling. Appearances matter. She simply doesn't fit our aesthetic. Keep her hidden." "Michael, I guess that's for the best. I don't want any drama. Just make sure she has a plate of food or something." I stared at the screen until the pixels blurred. "She won't complain. She's meek. She doesn't fit our aesthetic." And Michael, I guess that's for the best. It wasn't thoughtlessness. It wasn't just snobbery. It was calculated, premeditated humiliation. My own son had agreed to bury me behind a pillar because I wasn't pretty enough, rich enough, or polished enough for his new life. I felt a physical pain in my chest, a tightening so severe I thought I was having a heart attack. But it wasn't my heart failing. It was heartbreaking. That night, I collapsed. I lay on the floor of my bedroom, the carpet scratching my cheek. I pulled the shawl I had been knitting, a soft, white cashmere wrap I had intended to give Claire as a welcome gift, and I clutched it to my chest. I wailed. It was an ugly, primal sound. I cried for the years I spent scrubbing other people's toilets. I cried for the bread I baked at 400 a.m. I cried for the miles I put on my body, the veins in my legs, the ache in my back. I had given everything. Every ounce of my life force had been poured into Michael. And this was my return. Shame, hiding, a seat behind a pillar. I lay there for hours as the sun went down and the room filled with shadows. But then, somewhere in the darkness, the tears stopped. I sat up. I wiped my face. I looked at the shawl in my hands. Beautiful, intricate, made with skill and love. They think I am nothing, I thought. They think I am a prop to be moved out of frame. A spark ignited in my chest. It was small at first, but it burned hot. If they wanted to hide me, then I would let the whole room see me instead. I stood up. My knees popped, but I stood tall. I was not going to be the meek, quiet woman they expected. I was going to be the mother who raised a man, even if that man had forgotten who he was. I would reclaim my place. Not through anger. Not through a scene. But through the truth. The next morning, I called Evelyn. Evelyn was a retired family court judge whom I had cleaned for over 20 years. We had become friends over coffee breaks. She had watched Michael grow up. She had sent him a graduation gift. She was sharp as a tack and suffered no fools. Evelyn, I said, I need your help. I went to her house and showed her the screenshots. Evelyn read them, her lips thinning into a straight line. She took off her glasses. They forget who raised that boy, she said, her voice like gravel. They forget that you are the iron in his spine, even if he's currently spineless. I want to say something, I said. At the wedding. The reception, Evelyn corrected. The ceremony is too sacred even if they are desecrating it. But the reception, usually, there is a time for family blessings. An open mic? They won't call on me. Then we make sure you are ready when the moment comes, Evelyn said. And we make sure you are heard. We spent the afternoon drafting. It wasn't a speech of rage. It was a speech of facts. We crafted sentences that were calm, precise, and devastating. We need the evidence, Evelyn said. Do you have the projector capability? Evelyn, I don't know how to use a projector. I do, she smiled, a shark-like grin. I'm coming as your +1. I don't care if I wasn't invited. Let them try to throw a judge out. We rehearsed. I practiced keeping my voice steady. I practiced standing tall. I went home and ironed my lavender dress. I polished my shoes. I looked in the mirror. I didn't see a servant. I saw a survivor. Which brings us back to the pillar. I sat there through the ceremony, hidden unseen. I endured the humiliation of the muffled vows. I endured the whispers. When the ceremony ended, the guests shuffled toward the reception hall. I waited until the end, then walked in with Evelyn beside me. The reception hall was even grander than the ceremony space. Crystal chandeliers. Tables set with gold-rimmed plates. When I entered, a hush fell over the people near the door. Isn't that Michael's mother? Why was she seated back there? Who is that with her? Is that Judge Evelyn right? We found my assigned table. It was, predictably, in the back corner near the kitchen doors. Table 24, I sat down. I waited. I watched Claire and Michael enter to thunderous applause. I watched them dance. Michael looked happy, but his eyes kept darting to the corners of the room, as if looking for a ghost. Claire sat at the head table, whispering frantically to her mother. She had spotted me. She had spotted Evelyn. She looked unnerved. The dinner was served. I ate quietly. Then the moment arrived. Claire's father stood up. He tapped his glass. We've had some lovely toasts, he boomed, his face flushed with expensive wine. But we have a tradition. An open mic for any family blessings. If anyone wants to share a word of love, now is the time. He smiled, expecting his business partners to stand up. Instead, I stood up. Claire's face blanched. She gripped Michael's arm. She shook her head violently. But I was already walking. Evelyn was right behind me, carrying a small laptop bag. The room went silent, the kind of silence that feels like a vacuum. I walked to the center of the dance floor, where the microphone stand waited. I took the microphone. My hand trembled, just once, then steadied. Hello, I said. My voice was soft, but it echoed through the speakers, filling every corner of the room, reaching every person who had whispered about me. For those who don't know me, I am Michael's mother. There was a scattering of polite, confused applause. I sat behind a pillar today, I continued. I couldn't see my son get married. I couldn't see his bride's face. Gasps rippled through the room. Claire looked like she was going to faint. Michael looked sick. I raised Michael alone, I said, looking directly at him. I worked 2 jobs for 18 years. I cleaned houses just like this one. I baked bread before the sun came up. I did it so he could have braces, so he could play soccer, so he could go to college without debt. I gave him my life, I said. And today, I learned what that life was worth to him. When you seat a mother behind a pillar, I said, my voice rising slightly, gaining power, he does not hide her. It only reveals what kind of hearts chose that placement. Evelyn, moving with the efficiency of a court clerk, had plugged her laptop into the AV system on the side of the stage. The projection screen behind the head table, which had been showing a slideshow of the couple, flickered. The screenshots appeared. 10 feet high. Claire's seat her far back. Her outfit will ruin photos. Michael, I guess that's for the best. The room froze. It was as if time stopped. 300 guests stared at the screen. They read the cruelty. They read the vanity. They read the betrayal. You worried about your aesthetic, I said, turning to face Claire. You worried that my simple dress would ruin your pictures. Well, my dear, I think your own words have done far more damage to your image than my dress ever could. For a second, there was absolute silence. Then Claire screamed, Michael, stop her. She's embarrassing us. Those words, embarrassing us. They hung in the air, screeching and ugly. Something snapped in Michael's face. It was as if a spell had broken. He looked at the screaming woman beside him. He looked at the giant screen showing his own cowardly text message. He looked at me, standing alone on the dance floor, dignified in my lavender dress. You did this, he whispered to her, his voice amplified by the silence. You planned this? You told me she wanted to sit there. She's ruining my day, Claire shrieked. Get her out. Michael stood up. He backed away from her. No, he said. He looked at the crowd. The guests were murmuring angrily now. People were shifting away from Claire's family tables. The illusion of the perfect family had shattered into a million jagged pieces. You hid my mother, Michael said, his voice cracking. The woman who scrubbed floors for me. You hid her. Claire's mask fell completely. Her face twisted into a snarl of pure entitlement. She's a maid, Michael. Look at her. She doesn't belong here, the crowd gasped. Michael rushed down from the head table. He ran across the dance floor. He stopped in front of me, tears streaming down his face. Mom, he choked out. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't, Anne. I let her. God, I'm so for me. I looked at him. I loved him. He was my breath, my heart, my miracle. But he had sat there. He had typed that message. He had let them put me behind the pillar. I reached out and touched his cheek gently. My hand was warm. His skin was cold. I love you, son, I said softly. But love without respect is half love, and I deserve all the love. I stepped back. I can't stay, I said. Please, he begged. Please, Mom. We'll fix it. Take my seat. Take the head table. No, I said. Leaving with dignity felt better than any forced reconciliation in a room full of shattered illusions and uncomfortable strangers. I didn't want their pity seat. I didn't want their apology dinner. I turned to Evelyn. Are you ready? More than ready? Evelyn said, packing up her laptop. I walked out of the ballroom. I walked down the long corridor, past the ushers who stared at me with awe. I walked out into the cool night air. I took a deep breath. It smelled of rain and freedom. I had reclaimed my worth. Not by screaming, not by fighting, but by refusing to be hidden. My dears, I say to you now, sitting in my favorite chair, the lavender dress hanging in the back of my closet as a reminder. A mother's love is not a decoration for weddings. It is not a prop to be brought out when convenient and hidden when it clashes with the drapes. It is the foundation on which children learn to stand. When people forget the hands that fed them, life has a way of reminding them. The truth is a patient guest. It always arrives eventually. Dignity is not something given to you by others. It is not something you buy with a ticket or an invitation. It is protected by the choices we make. It is kept by the boundaries we set. And sometimes your voice, spoken calmly, bravely, can shake the walls others built to hide you. Never allow anyone, not even your own child, to seat you behind a pillar. If they won't give you a seat at the table, you stand, you speak, and then you walk away. Stand where you deserve to stand. Always.